With a yo-ho-ho, it's Taylor the Toaster, and I've got a different kind of video format for everyone today. This is going to be a bit more discussion-based, maybe low-edit stuff, so if you want to listen to this in the background like it's a podcast type of thing, this might be the right vibe. But this is a video I've been wanting to make for a few weeks since I randomly had the idea, and it means for the first time in a good while I've gotten to bring on some new guests onto the channel, because it kind of allows for, hopefully, some perspectives to be voiced that I cannot really do by myself, because as a bit of pre-context, I love Season 3 of Inazuma 11. I think it's probably the best one. When I say Season 3, I'm kind of referring to the anime and the game as a collective unit. So Inazuma 11 3, I think it's pretty widely regarded as the fan favourite season, and if you were to try and guess anybody's favourite, it's, I feel like, the most common answer. I don't have any proof, but just from my time in the fandom, I find that Season 3 tends to be the most popular. But what I wanted to do was today kind of challenge that principle, and I've actually got in touch with 3 different people that I've come to know from the Inazuma 11 community who, by all accounts, really like Inazuma 11, but when push comes to shove, when I ask them, you know, what's your kind of favourite and least favourite seasons, I've actually managed to find a rare group of people that have Season 3 either towards the bottom of their list or at the bottom of the list, which for me is like, whoa, I want to know why. Isn't that the best one? But maybe there's something here that I've just not opened my eyes to. So I want to have a bit of a, you know, an open discussion with all these people and see what the crack is. So, in order, our first guest, I've got Darts Enthusiast. How are we doing?
Hey, doing great, thank you. Yeah, I'm Darts, also known as Alex. Can call me whatever. Yeah, I'm a huge Level 5 fan. Been following their games and what they've been doing since, like maybe for the past 15 years, ever since the first Layton game came out in Europe. And yeah, I also run a French news website called Inazuma Frontier. So yeah, I've been pretty active in following the news of the Inazuma 11 series in general and what Level 5 does. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, like I've been running a YouTube channel about Inazuma 11 since 2016, and I still have to learn from this guy. Darts knows a lot about Level 5, not just about Inazuma, but it's like, you know, whenever I want to know anything about Megaton Musashi, for instance, it's straight to Darts' Twitter for me, because, yeah, I mean, if you've been around since the EU launch of the Layton games, then, yeah, that predates me. I pretty much got into Inazuma with the first Inazuma game on DS in 2011, and Darts has already been around longer than that, so it's fantastic. But we've also got a friend of the channel, somebody I've worked with in the past, and generally not so much like a wider part of the Inazuma community, but secretly a big fan of it all along. We've got Soup Lexi.
How's it going? My name's Lexi. You may remember me from that time I beat Tail at tennis, and also that time I beat Tail at tennis again. Lots of tennis we have going on, right?
Not Mario Tennis, is it? It's been rebranded at this point.
It was Mario Tennis Aces, yeah?
No, I think we've played some actual tennis at this point.
Oh, true. I'll definitely, you know what? Next time we meet up, that's something we're doing. So I have been a fan of Inazuma 11 since about the same time you have, Tail. 2011, went into a Morrison's one day during the summer, picked up the DS game. I'm in right there.
The exact same shop I got mine from.
Exact same shop. They had it for so cheap.
It's 20 quid, man. How can I
20 quid. And it looked so good. And you know, I've played the games they released over here. Haven't played Go Galaxy yet, but I think I feel pretty confident to say that I only play good games nowadays. So Inazuma 11-3 was a little bit of a shock to the system. I'm joking.
No, with civil intro. You're just coming out with forks and knives.
I'm just here for the banter.
No, this is a good chance to say, you know, somebody like Darts, for instance, has been all around the Level 5 sphere and watched every season, played a lot of the games, whereas I think you're an interesting case, Lexi, where you've been into Inazuma 11 for almost as long as I have, but only really through playing the games, and the anime stuff has not really gotten to you. So
I have watched a grand total of 3 episodes in my life. The first two and the middle of the Zeus match.
yeah, so it's like for darts who might have season 3 at the bottom of a top 9, you've kind of got it at the bottom of a top 5 because Go Galaxy never came out officially in this country, and then Ares and Orion will be a bit of a blur to you. But I think the opinions of a game-only enjoyer are really valuable, and it will add a lot. So we'll introduce one more person, and then we'll get on with it, because we've finally got a woman of many names, but one of those names, at the very minimum, is Aura. Hello.
Hello, I've been a level 5 fan since the early 2010s, and then I got into Inazuma 11 in 2015. I only started posting online since COVID lockdown time, but yeah, I really enjoy Inazuma 11, and it's definitely one of my favorite. I'm so sorry. It's definitely one of my favorite anime and video game series. I've played all of the mainline games, so the DS and 3DS games. I haven't touched Strikers, and I've seen all the anime seasons.
Don't worry, I haven't touched Strikers either. Commentated the World Cup, and that was it.
I've
Really.
told myself I'll buy the Wii game. I never.
But still, like a comparative newcomer to the community, but has secretly been a fan the whole time. But I guess you were primarily known for being an artist on the likes of Twitter.com and Instagram.com and all of the
Yes.
.coms. So everyone's socials will be in the descriptions, and we'll have a crack about talking about season 3 now, because yes, I've assembled the quote-unquote biggest group of haters I can find, except in reality we'll just get to explore what the wider thoughts on season 3 are. So for a bit of context, what I wanted to do first was kind of go through everyone and see what your favourite Inazuma season actually is. I don't know if there's going to be overlap, but Darts, how about you?
I'd say it depends on my mood, but usually the answer will be either season 2 with Ilias Academy or Chrono Stones. Basically, the adventure save the world kind of stories. I feel they're more fun and they make better games overall compared to just regular tournament arcs. But that being said, I still have a soft spot for Ares, which I know isn't very
Somebody's
popular.
got to.
Yeah, someone has to. If I have to be the last Ares fan on Earth, it'll be me. I'll be fine being that fan.
And how about you, Lexi? What's your favourite Inazuma game?
Oh, you see, I actually am completely different to Darts. Where my favorite depends on the day, and it's either Inazuma 11 2 or Chrono Stones.
Right.
I've just found myself having the most fun with them. Like, at least in the original trilogy, I felt 2's gameplay came together the most. I was the most invested in that story. And then Chrono Stones, just all the crazy additions they were adding by that time just made it it was a ludicrous amount of fun. Also, the only Inazuma 11 game to make me cry. How about that?
It's funny as well, because even for me, my top 3 would be Inazuma 2, 3, and Chrono Stones. But can we complete the trinity? How about you, Aura?
I have a crazy thing to say. Depends on the game or the anime, but yeah, Inazuma 11 2 and Chrono Stones.
What? So all in
What are the
all,
odds?
the video can end now. The correlation is anyone who thinks season 2 and 5 are the best are going to be down on season... No, when you said I'm going to say something crazy, I was fully bracing myself for you to say Orion. And I'm like, great, somebody's got to. But no, well, that doesn't feel like a coincidence, to be fair. We've got a whole host of season 2 and Chrono Stones lovers, which I guess could just bring us on to the next bit as well. You guys have all kind of got season 3 towards the bottom of your lists, but I don't think anybody actively dislikes it. If I just ask everyone, what are your general thoughts? What do you like the most about season 3? Let's go with that first.
I mean, I can start with my thoughts. Obviously, I think it's the longest season in the entire series. It's 60-something episodes. So clearly, if I didn't like it, I would have just dropped the series entirely. I still watched all the way to the end, so there was still some enjoyment to be had. But I guess if I had to put it simply, I feel season 3 is the one that feels the most like going on a cozy summer vacation with a group of friends, and that's what I like the most about it. Because like between the setting, which is like a tropical island, the fact that the characters are in a different country, they're meeting people from different countries as well. There's like there's no school, no parents, no high stakes besides the World Cup, of course. Like it really feels like you're just hanging out with some friends, just enjoying the summer, and it it's really cozy to watch. I feel like despite the tension of the World Cup, it's very cozy. And the characters themselves, because like I say, group of friends, it's not just like the characters themselves are friends, obviously, and they act like friends throughout the entire season, but also they're all characters from the previous seasons and previous games that you've come to get attached to. There are also some former rivals that you really liked because they were like really cool villains in the second game or the first game. You get to meet those characters again and spend some time with them. And I guess in a way, it kind of feels like you're hanging out with your friends from the previous games and previous seasons. So that's the one positive thing I will say about this season, and probably the only positive thing I will say.
Of course. What about you, Lexi?
So for me, honestly, I haven't played Inazuma 11-3 since the game first came out, which I don't remember when that was. Was that like 2014-ish at this point?
It was kind of both.
2013.
Depends whether you go by Lightning Bolt and Bomb Blast or Team Ogre attacks, but it was
Uh,
2013 and 14.
I played Lightning Blast. Just
Lightning Blast, you merged them.
I played Lightning. I played Thunder. Boom. So a lot of what I'm about to say is fairly hazy, but to refresh myself the slightest bit, I did end up playing about an hour or two earlier before this recording today. I think it is one of the best looking games in the Inazuma 11 franchise, and it's not even close. Like, obviously the game was originally designed with the DS in mind and then got upscaled to the 3DS. It looks so good, just like visually, with that like slight little resolution boost I think it has going on. And then just, compared to like the Go games, which I think do look great, Inazuma 11-3's like overall just background design and stuff looks fantastic. Also has the single best opening of any of the games in Good Kita. I will fight
You
people on
reckon?
this.
Yes.
It's either that or the first opening of Inazuma 11 Shadow. I don't remember what it's called. I don't think.
Yeah, break it
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
That one's definitely a fan favourite. That could be a topic for another video. It's almost like I'm working on something there.
No way.
That'll be fascinating. But no, I appreciate the touching on the graphical side because it gives me a warm sense of nostalgia as well. It's like, because the 3DS is my favourite console of all time, but it looks like a DS game, but they've just kind of modified it just enough so it feels enough like a 3DS game. Like, you don't feel they just took the DS game and released it for the next console. They still had the foresight to swap the screens around, make it 3D, make it widescreen where appropriate. They had to use some borders every now and again, but that meant I could use borders in my Let's Play designs, so it kind of helped. But Aura, what are your favourite parts of Season 3 and the third game?
Yeah, I think some things I will say are similar to what Alex said. Yeah, I really like how it feels like an accumulation of everything that came before in season 1 and season 2, like all of the characters who came back, like, and played on the team and came back as enemies, like Byron and like, yeah. Also, I love how we get to see more of the world outside of just like Japan in the Inazuma 11 universe. Like, it's nice because it's like in season 1, it was like you were in Raimon's area, and then we go on to the entirety of Japan in season 2. And season 3 is like finally we're seeing the whole world and how the whole world interacts with football. And I loved seeing all the different ways, like all the different countries they chose and how they represented all of the countries on Lyocott Island. I also found really cool. I also think lots of the character arcs were really compelling, like with Mr. D and I'm sorry, mate. Yeah.
Paolo? That's just a guess. He was part of Mr. D's arc, but yeah, no, I really like that aspect of it as well, because the first game, I wasn't even thinking about where it was set, to be honest. Like, clearly it is in Japan, because Ryman is like a real area of Tokyo and stuff, but I didn't know that when I was a kid. The game could have been anywhere until you get to the second game and you realise, oh, it's very clearly in Japan. But, the first game, they could have just Ace Attorney'd it if they wanted to, and took this game that's set in Japan and just pretended that it wasn't. Like, they could have Americanized the first game if they wanted to, but thankfully they didn't lean too far in either direction. But then by the third game, you're truly getting the world involved, and I'm like, yes, I can have an England team. How do they represent me? Not that great, to be honest, but we were certainly in there. We still got it better than poor old Alex did with the representation of France.
Oh man, the representation of France in Orion was the best by far.
Lexi, you don't even know what happens to France in Orion, but I really want Darts to spoil it for you right now, just so you can react to it.
All right, lay it on me. Let me know what's going on.
Okay. Inazuma Japan is supposed to fight against France. It's supposed to be a very decisive match, but there's this shadow organization that's trying to fix the matches and everything. Mm-hmm. They literally poison all the players of the French team to cancel the match and replace the team with their own team. And the way they poison them is by poisoning their baguettes. Because all the French players have, they only eat baguettes while they're here for the World Cup. They have baguettes in their drawers, and they're all poisoned. So they eat the baguettes, and they get poisoned. That's unfortunately a cause of a lot of casualties in France. It's actually poisoned baguettes is actually the number one cause of death in France.
It's the perfect meme encapsulation of Inazuma at its lowest. Sometimes. Yeah. Can we clarify, actually, before we get to the Season 3 bad points? Obviously, in Lexi's case, you've just never watched Orion, but Aura and Darts, you have. Do either of you two actually think Orion is better or worse than the third entry? Because I think Orion is probably the most controversial and disliked season of the bunch, but would you don't necessarily have to say it's better, but do you prefer Orion to the third entry?
Yeah, I don't know if it's objectively better, but I had more enjoyment watching Orion, so I rank it above.
Yeah, I have to agree with Aura. I had a lot more fun watching Orion. Objectively speaking, I think it's probably the worst season in terms of writing, production, everything you want to say. It's a giant mess, but it's a very, very fun mess to follow. And there are a lot of lows, but there are some very high highs. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't watching this every Friday and losing my mind at some of the absolutely crazy plot twists that were in the season. So yeah, overall, I enjoyed Orion more than Season 3.
Love that. So Lexi, you're going to have to watch it now purely on account of poisoned baguettes.
Oh, you have to watch it. You have to. If you only watch one season, it has to be Orion, really.
To be honest, it is a very good selling point, because the notion that is something is so bad and just out there that it becomes immediately funnier is a very good selling point to me. If something is gonna go one way in terms of quality, just make it as ridiculous as possible, and I'll probably be on board with it no matter what.
Excellent.
Honestly, the baguette is not the baguette thing is not the craziest part of Orion.
It's true.
It really isn't the craziest part.
I do feel the need to point out one thing, though, because it took me until this very conversation we're having right now to realize that Inazuma 11, Orion, and Ares are two different things.
Yeah, there is that. Ares is a soft reboot for the show, and it's just a Football Frontier season, but a little bit later on from the events of Season 1, whereas Orion is the new Season 3. They are both Football Frontiers, but Season 3 is kind of just a Football Frontier, whereas Orion, it's got more dreams to achieve, shall we say. But maybe we'll do some more content about Orion on this channel in the future if we want to truly deep dive into opinions on that show. But for now, we'll keep it about Season 3, because, Orion often very universally disliked, whereas Season 3 almost magnanimously loved. So before I invited the three of you to do this video with me, you've all kind of given me at least one reason each as to why Season 3 falls behind, which we've not said yet, but before I heard any of that from anybody, I tried to have a little think about why Season 3 might fall behind for somebody, because yeah, I'm just trying to go over the season as a whole, and I just kind of sat there thinking, well, this is great. So what could put someone off Season 3? I think the only reason I ever really arrived at, either from other people that I've seen talking about it on Twitters and Discords who we've long forgotten, or just as a pure guess, I think the only real conclusion I could come to properly before you all get to your own reasons was just a bit of a guess that it's the season that's most dependent on actually liking football. Because you can definitely enjoy a lot of the other Inazuma seasons without really caring about real-world soccer. And in fact, most of my friends in the Inazuma community generally don't care that much about football. But I think Season 3 is the one that is most about football. Ares is pretty about football as well, but at least for the first 6 games. So I just want to pose the question, all three of you answer collectively if you want. Do any of you actually like football?
No.
Not really.
Not at all.
And it's funny because I didn't especially like football either when I got into the Inazuma series. I got into Inazuma because I liked Mario Tennis, funny enough. Lexi's apparently better at it, but I played a lot of Mario Tennis Power Tour on the Game Boy Advance, and then Inazuma 11 to me was another anime OCs style sports RPG. If you've not seen Mario Tennis Power Tour, I beg you to look it up, because Mario does not even appear in it until the post-game. But I played Inazuma 11 to get a game like that. I didn't strictly care about football itself, but I admit I kind of got into football and came to appreciate it as a result of watching Inazuma 11, which doesn't happen for everybody. But, well, clearly not, because not one of the three of you care about actual football. And do you think that hinders the experience in watching the show or playing this particular game?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I enjoy casual, like, playing football with my friends and stuff, but I'm not into, like, leagues or anything, so I just don't get that aspect of it, I guess, like, too much. Like, I can't latch onto it.
I mean, I don't like the leagues either. I like the World Cup and the Euros, but that's about it, which feels very Inazuma.
I don't know that there's a difference between any of these.
Leagues are just like billionaires' clubs in England with hand-picked teams off against each other, and they do it every year. Whereas at least the World Cup, you actually have to be ethnically tied to a country that you're representing, and it's once every 4 years instead of every one. But yeah, don't need to sweat the details, because I'm not here to make you like football. I'm here to see why Season 3 might fall behind. But yeah, go ahead, Lexi.
Honestly, I don't think a lack of enjoying football really would impact me too much in this aspect, because I think with Inazuma 11-3, I don't remember caring about the story particularly much, which, fair enough. But I do know that I have enjoyed other football-based stories. Very recently, Tail, Blue Lock came out, anime, very good. Awashi at the similar time. Obviously not the very same thing. They use football as a means to tell other stories, kind of thing. But I'm also a wrestling fan, and, wrestling will sometimes occasionally do, like, a league-style thing. And obviously, there's going to be that whole, like, is wrestling real, is wrestling fake thing. It's fake. We know it's fake. Get over it. But at the same time, like, they will occasionally use the tournament format as a medium for telling stories. And, I can find myself constantly pretty engaged in that. So I don't believe Inazuma 11-3 taking a league-based approach to anything would ultimately impact my enjoyment of it.
Good to know. But I guess it's leads us on to darts, and yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Lexi here. Like I've mentioned, I really enjoyed Ares, even though it's also a tournament arc and it's just about football, and there isn't anything crazy like aliens or any sci-fi stuff. And to begin with, I got into the series with the first game, and it was a soccer game. Like, it was football. I still got into it, even though it was about a sport I didn't care much about. Like, I think the last time I cared about football before that was the 1998 World Cup when I was like 5, I think. Like, I was very young and just crazy about football back then. That was the only time I really cared about football. And still, I was able to get into the series, and I enjoyed it a lot. So, yeah, I think it's like Lexi said, it's probably more about the story. Like, you can use like the context of a sports tournament to tell a good story, and I feel that unlike the first season, unlike Ares, in my opinion, uh, Inazuma 11 3 didn't quite tell a good enough story to keep me invested all the way through, and that's the main issue, I think.
Sure, because that's a great way to just move into the actual main meat of the discussion. In that, I'll just ask everyone point blank: what does actually hold you back from enjoying season 3 the most? What do you think are its main flaws? What could you maybe improve about it, or is there something that the other seasons do really well that season 3 just fails to do? So stick with darts for now because you've kind of got the flow going already. But yeah, in general, what would you say about season 3 that holds it towards the bottom of your ranking?
Well, I guess I'll just uh, explore the point I just mentioned before that a bit more. It's really the story, I guess, first and foremost. It really wasn't super investing. Uh, like, like, like I say, it was a cozy story, and it was nice to just watch, like, binge the series and see the adventures of those kids throughout the World Cup. But at the same time, there wasn't anything else on the side besides a few character arcs that were pretty interesting, especially the whole thing with Jude and Mr. D and all of that. But there wasn't really an overarching story that tied everything together, except when it randomly decided that it actually had an overarching story in the form of I forgot his name. The villain of
Garshield.
season 3, Garshield,
Oh, Zulin Rice. What a
Zulin Rice,
guy.
right? That guy. Uh, they decided to have this overarching villain, and I think that actually brought the story down overall. Like, I probably would have enjoyed it more if there was absolutely zero stakes besides just we want to be the champions, we want to win this, and we want to fulfill our dreams. That would have been good enough. But I feel Hino, the like who I believe wrote the story for that game, like most of the level 5 games. I think he wanted the story to say something, about war, about weapons, like arms dealers and stuff. But it didn't quite manage to tell this, like tell the message he wanted to tell. Ironically, Orion did a better job at this. And again, I'm going to praise Orion over Season 3. Um, I feel Orion managed to tell a similar story about conflicts in the world, about world peace, and so on, but it managed to do it in a more Inazuma way, something more allegorical, something more wholesome, something more fun overall. Season 3, the whole plot about Garshield arrived a bit too late to really hold the overall story together, like it was like, how do I say, uh like it kind of felt like it came out of nowhere, and it didn't go really anywhere. by the time by the time we reached the climax, it was just resolved just like that. And also, when you think about it, the whole plan, like Garshield's whole plan, just didn't really make sense to begin with. So it was really hard to care about this, and I think it brought everything down overall in terms of quality.
Yeah, I can totally see that one because Garshield and his whole Zulin Rice plot, that's probably my least favourite aspect of the whole original trilogy as well. Season 3 is one where I guess there's different ways to view it because I think many people will agree that Zulin Rice's villain plot did suck. It wasn't much fun to watch, and yes, it came on too late for it to really have an impact, but I think my point of view is, okay, you've also got Orion where the villain plot is present all the way through this time, and it meant we didn't get to relax and really have fun with every match because every match has got to somehow be connected back to the big bad story that they're trying to tell. With season 3, I think my point of view is I would rather isolate the bad into a short window that I can just ignore. And if I'm rewatching the season, yeah, I agree that Zulan's part fails a lot, but at least it's only affecting a small amount of the season. And then, like you say, I'd also prefer just a no-stakes season where they didn't even bother trying to have a villain like that in the first place. I think the only real positive that comes out of it is Ray Dark's death, and even then they backtracked on that as well. So the one thing that season 3 did have going for it in the villain plot kind of sense got eradicated anyway. But yeah, I guess it's more of a glass half full perspective in my sense, where at least the bad side of season 3 is only constrained to a little bit of it, like pretty much entirely around the Brazil match. And sure enough, the Brazil match will be my least favourite of the season, but at least I can love the rest of it. But it's definitely a valid point of view where if you are looking at the overall story rather than just funny matches go haha, then yeah, that's definitely a blight on season 3. So thank you for that one, Dart. Lexi, do you want to go next? What are your main problems with season 3, the third game?
So I have a few points I've just noted out for myself, so I remember what to mention. 2 of them are fairly game specific. So do you want me to go into those first, or
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay. So I think my overall biggest issue with Inazuma 11-3, just as a whole, is when I first played Inazuma 11-1, I was just going through random encounters every now and then, and I came across a guy called Ace Server. And I don't know what about him particularly spoke to me, but I decided he is my main forward going forward. And, I grabbed him on the team as soon as I could, and he became an essential part. The end of the game, my team looked very unique to me. In Inazuma 11-2, I felt the exact same way. I found some players I really liked, put them on the team, went great. Inazuma 11-3 does not allow you to do that in nearly an easy enough way. Thanks to the gacha system, and I could be wrong about this, any player acquired through the gacha system feeling significantly weaker than anyone else the main story will give you. I did not feel encouraged to experiment with who I could use, especially since, I had a bit less control in who I could use, thanks to just it kind of I'll just spend some coins, you might get someone cool. You never do get someone you cool, because I think most of the plays you'd probably want to see are post-game, right?
I could see that, because I don't think the gacha players that you get from the lottery machines are strictly worse than they ever were. I think it's more just your main protagonist team is stronger than it's ever been, which can de-incentivize using them. And yeah, it's not like Inazuma 1 where you can just ask Nelly to go and find someone in the background, or Inazuma 2 where you can just scout anyone ever and have them immediately. Inazuma 3 adding some randomness to it was a bit weird, and yeah, in terms of the first 2 games, you could take opponents from the teams that you were facing along the way, whereas Season 3, or the third game, you can recruit the players from Australia, Qatar, and South Korea at about the halfway mark, and then everyone else that you face in the FFI, for obvious story reasons at the end of the day, but you are Inazuma Japan, and these guys from England and from Argentina are your opponents in the same group. But yeah, these opponents that you're facing, you don't get to recruit them until the post game, which is valid. By the same token, there is Chrono Stones, which does this even worse, in my opinion, where the final boss requires you to use the 11 story players. But yeah, carry on.
I think that's fine, specifically for a final boss scenario, especially just since Chrono Stones is kind of wacky. Now, I thought you were going to bring up the fact that, once you get to Inazuma 11 Go, that's when PAL packing gets introduced.
Yeah.
And I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here.
Oh, no.
I prefer PAL packing to the gacha system.
Oh, my heart.
I thought everyone preferred PAL packing to the gacha system.
Is the gacha system any better than PAL packing?
PAL packing's better in theory, but they just botched it so badly in Go 1 to the point where pretty much anyone that I ever wanted to recruit in that game would seemingly be available straight away, but the more you get down to like their 9th recruitment condition, which is actually a different player's recruitment condition that just happens to be needed along the way, you'll just find out at the worst moment that you can't actually complete this. And I feel like pal packing in the Go trilogy, you can only really get started with it in the post game properly, or if you do start it early on, you don't really know what you're going for. The randomness of Inazuma 11-3 I don't appreciate, and it was definitely better in the first 2 games, but at least you kind of can recruit random players throughout the main story. Like, obviously I have as a Let's Player, my biggest moment of discovery where I just encountered Pants in a random encounter, and I'm like, yep, I need her, I don't care what it takes. And yes, I had to go through a stupid gacha lottery thing, but at least I could have her as soon as I encountered her. Pal packing started really bad, and then they gradually improved it, but I'll always kind of associate it with how poor it was in Go 1. But yeah, don't let me steal your point from you. Obviously, it's a point worth talking about.
Yeah, no worries. I think for me, I liked the fact that like pal packing did feel like I had a little more control over it. Like, obviously, I was still limited to like the big players who I would want later on. I have to get them later on. But at the same time, pal packing as a system encourages you to keep playing the game somewhat. Like, oh, I need to keep playing this here, here, and here so I can get to this. Where with Inazuma 11-3, it's just like, stick your hand in the bag, maybe it will work out. And I don't know, I think I just prefer like having that sense of control. Obviously, this is like specifically a game mechanic thing. I would have preferred if they just stuck with the scout system overall. The scout system was fine. Don't know why they changed it, but they did. Well, hey.
Yeah, and I guess maybe important to point out the difference as well, because like pal packing in the Go games affects everyone. Inazuma 11-3's changes to the scouting system it's definitely worse than the past 2 games, but it also only really affects the random encounters. If you want to get known story relevant players from the opponent teams, yeah, you're also stuck to doing that in the post game unless you're picking Aphrodite and Torch and Gazelle from South Korea or anything else that you want from the first 3 opponents. But at least when you are in the post game, again, anyone that you want from an opponent team, you pretty much can have. So for me, that kind of softened the blow of the random system a lot, because it's like, at least it only affects the less important of the 2 recruitment sides, even though I still care a lot about the absolute nobodies from random encounters as well that you can add to your team. Like, Katie Punter from my Inazuma 2 team was my star defender, shout outs to her. But yeah, totally in agreement that it was a big step down. I probably do prefer Inazuma 3's system to maybe the next 1 or 2 that came after it. I think by Galaxy it was probably solved enough. But yeah, needed somebody to defend pal packing on my channel, because I sure as hell wasn't going to do it. But you had some other points as well, right, Lexi?
Yeah, my other game-specific thing is something that, like, I kind of knew about, but I only learned more about it today, actually. So, obviously, when it comes to Inazuma 11, as a series at this point, there's multiple versions of each game, and would I be right in assuming that Inazuma 11-3 is the only one with 3 versions now?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so, how I always understood it, was like, you had your choice of Lightning Bolt or Bomb Blast at the start, like, pick one, well, hey. And then Team Ogre Attacks came out, and I always assumed, oh, Team Ogre Attacks is the definitive version with more story content overall. This means that just, like, those other 2 versions kind of irrelevant somewhat. I only learned today that the other 2 versions actually do have, like, specific character development for certain characters that are only locked towards them. And I worked that out when I turned on the game today, because, you hit new game and the first cutscene plays, and immediately you're into walking around as Paolo. I did not remember he existed. I didn't remember why I was meant to care about him, and, it just feels weird to me, especially since, like, now that I know the other 2 versions are Helio. I think Helio is his name, right? Like, I am
Hector
very...
Helio,
Yeah.
or Rococo in Japanese.
Yeah, and then Canon, who obviously is like, if you don't know Canon's coming, kind of a shocked there, I would say. Um, yeah, it's just like I don't like the notion that specific story beats are like directly tied to other games. And I think the other games might like do this as well. But or at least in the post game they definitely do, but it's not as much of a deal there because that's usually where like that's where you keep like the movie stuff. Um but in Inazuma 11 3 in particular, the fact it's like recurring throughout the entire game and then, Team Ogre attacks morphs this into Team Ogre attacking.
Yes.
It feels a little more just I don't know, I don't like it.
You know what's especially funny about it, Lexi, considering you only just really learned this today? I'm pretty sure that when I recorded my YouTube video of like all cutscenes in Lightning Bolt that are exclusive to Lightning Bolt, I'm pretty sure I borrowed your game to film that. Like we met up over a multiplayer sesh, and then I just asked it. Oh yeah, no, I didn't borrow it for the cutscenes. I did end up making that video anyway, but like there's a gallery feature in the post game, and the gallery has different drawings in it depending on whether you have Lightning Bolt, Bomb Blast, or Team Ogre attacks. So I had to borrow your Lightning Bolt to film the gallery content because I didn't own the game at the time. That definitely happened at least, but I think I may have filmed one cutscene as well, perhaps. But
I have absolutely no memory of this. Like this is baffling to me. So you're telling me I knew?
I don't think you did. I probably just asked, can I borrow your game? There's something I need to do on Lightning Bolt in particular. You are right, though. Like, at the time, the main sell of Lightning Bolt and Bomb Blast was, one's got the Angels team, and then the other's got the Devils, and then, wow, Team Ogre Attacks lets you play against them both. Have fun if you got the worst versions, but it is true that the Paolo backstory and the Hector Helio backstory do remain exclusive, and that has been brought up especially for Hector Helio from the Little Gigantes team, because that's someone who, without those isolated story beats, does just kind of pop into existence in the final quarter of the story, whereas if you played Bomb Blast in particular, you were kind of exposed to him from the beginning. I mean, having played all three of the subplots, the Paolo one I think is fun, but the story can definitely survive without it, because he gets a lot of on-screen stuff anyway. I think the Hector Helio stuff would probably be the most useful to have as a player, while Canon's stuff, it is spread throughout the main story, but you could pretend it was all post-game anyway, because none of it is going to directly interfere with the main plot that's going on right now. But yeah, so I think in a sense Bomb Blast does have it best in that way. But then, some people like to have a twist villain. Well, not twist villain, but a twist final boss towards the end. But no, completely fair point.
Yeah. I think it's like just kind of interesting though, because like I mentioned I played like for an hour earlier before this. In that time, I had 2 Paolo cutscenes occur, and they felt at very strange intervals. Like, okay, the first one is like right after the intro sequence, which is fair enough if you're building up Paolo, which I honestly don't remember if they do. Like, I don't remember if he's like the major midpoint, like, captain or anything.
He's definitely more built up than Hector Helio, I can say that much.
That is fair.
But also his cutscenes are a little bit more shrouded in mystery, and, it's not talking about his journey to the FFI strictly, it's more just building up who he is and mixing Dave Evans into it.
That second cutscene, though, is the one that, like, kind of throws me off as to when it occurs, because it's just like, you've just introduced everyone who's like potentially going to be a part of like, they're part of the selection process, and Jude and Stonewall obviously kind of at each other's throats. Jude goes off to the noodle store. You go with him, comfort him, and then you get to pick which team do you want to play as. You play as Mark's team, you play as Jude's team. You walk outside, a 4-on-4 happens with some random guys. You beat them, hands down, and you get ready to go back to training, and the Paolo cutscene starts, and I don't know why they decided to do it there.
Right, fair enough.
Like, it just feels like... I don't know if that's where the Helio cutscene would be, I don't know if that's where a Canon cutscene would be, but it just feels like... It feels like they've just kind of like shoved it in somewhere. And obviously, it's been like a long time since I've played the full game. But if it remains like that throughout, not a fan of it.
Yeah, I can. I was at least glad to know after I finished my montage of all the Lightning Bolt exclusive scenes that, in total it was only. I think the video was about 22 minutes long. Maybe of that, it's probably about 15 minutes worth of Paolo cutscenes that I was reading out loud. But yeah, it's not like a huge amount of stuff, but it would probably help to have. Did you have another thing you wanted to go over before we move on to Aura?
I did, and I don't know if this is. This might be like the most like contentious thing I say, because something I love about Inazuma 11 as a whole is the unique characters it will provide you at. Like, they'll be introduced like over time. Like, you have some time with them. Like, join the team, introduce a new character over time. Join the team. Well, hey, even the villains. Like you just like. You see them, like, they're built up throughout the game, whatnot, sure. I did not like the new characters in Inazuma 11.3, like, at all.
Really?
When it comes to the characters that I specifically remember as, like, just, like, I kind of remember, like, something about them. Hector Helio, which I think kind of goes a little without saying. I remember liking Torres, and I have no idea why, but he's someone who, like, just, like, I when I think Inazuma 11.3, he's the name that comes to mind. And then, strangely enough, Minion, which is weird because he's not the most important minion even in Inazuma 11. So, like, I don't know what's going on there. Especially since we've just talked about, like, Zulan Rise's plot. Like, not really. It's not good. But a lot of the I think what it comes down to, and I was trying to, like, think about this, why did these characters not stick out to me? I think they're a little toned down compared to like everything that's come before it, because like I the easiest period to point out that's happened at this point is Inazuma 11.2 with Alias Academy. Sci-fi. It's wacky. It's over the top. It's ridiculous. Everyone is just kind of like out there for one reason or another. Inazuma 11.3 is really grounded comparatively. And I think that might just come in terms of like, the setting being like, a more normal football setting, like the actual like just, football frontier kind of stuff. I don't know where I'm really going with this, but I just know that like in terms of the Inazuma 11.3 characters, I didn't really like a lot of them. I did also consider about the 3 characters that you like, get pretty quickly in Austin, Stoutberg, and Archer.
Imagine throwing Thor in with those two. Yeah, I guess you're supposed to. I guess he was newly introduced for that game.
I didn't remember him being there before.
And then there's just him, who was technically in season 2 of the anime as well. So if you're a game only, he's new. But if you're an anime watcher, he's not. It's a whole thing. But yeah,
okay,
you're right. He definitely does pale in comparison to the others.
I didn't say that. And in fact, I'm not going to claim that.
Oh, you say he's the best, in fact.
I think he's my favorite out of the 3. Now, God. I do like Archer. Like, I do remember liking Archer, but I don't remember why at all. Like, that is something that I would have to replay the game for. I'm not going to speak too much on him. Mm-hmm. Austin is a strong contender for my least favorite member in, like, the main Inazuma 11 teams. And I don't entirely recall why, but I felt he was just, like, so basic compared to a lot of guys. I do appreciate the fact that the first time you meet Austin, in that first hour, he's getting bullied by a vampire. This is not something I can say about most Inazuma 11 characters. However, it doesn't really... It doesn't do a lot for me, because a lot of the characters at this point are just kind of, like, pretty out there, especially when it comes to forwards. Like, you have, like, fire, dragon, galaxies, whatnot. And then with Austin, it's just tigers. And I don't know, like, I think it would be cool in retrospect, like, going back now. Like, I do feel the need to keep reiterating, because I could be, like, just off my rocker with what I'm saying here. I haven't played this game fully in 10 years.
Yeah, no, Austin's theme is brought up On occasion in the fandom, I've definitely heard someone make at least that point before, but I've also heard the defense. So this isn't strictly my defense, but this is what I usually hear back when people are defending Austin's quote-unquote theme for his moves, because the guy's 11, he's like significantly younger than the other players, and I think when somebody first told me this, it kind of made sense that his theme is not strictly about tigers, but it's more just things that young kids find cool, because he's got a tiger move, but he's also got a swords move, and then he's got a remote control car move. It's like, when you look at it as a complete package, I kind of get what they were going for. He's just like got excitable young boy things as a theme, but it's obviously still a lot less recognizable than dragons and space and stuff. But,
That makes sense. Yeah, like I've never considered it like that, and I haven't been able to like really explore the character of Austin in like however long. Who knows? Maybe I will play the game soon again, and just, I will completely 180 on him. He'll be like right up there for me.
You're right, though. He's far from one of my favorites. Like, I'm a big Archer Hawkins enjoyer, but I really would like to get the thoughts of Darts and Aura on that one. How do you feel about the new characters in Season 3 in comparison? Is that like shared across the board, or is that just a Lexi thing?
Well, I like the new characters a lot. Like the main characters, but also most of the rivals. I think they're pretty cool. But I will agree with one point in that Inazuma got us used to seeing like really crazy and creative characters, and now the opposing teams are just normal kids. And I think that's one thing that made the whole season less exciting, and why I like Orion more. It's like, even if you look at season 1, the first Football Frontier, which was also just a tournament arc, you had like vampires and monsters, you had ninjas, you had animals, you had monsters, you had all sorts of different types of like all the teams had a very distinct theme that made them stand out. Like, they're not just regular kids. I think there's just like Kirkwood of the semifinals, who are just regular kids, didn't really have any special theme to them. But like, we got used to, even if they're not like actual ninjas, even though they're not actual monsters, they still have something that makes them stand out and influences their play styles and like the special moves they use. And so it makes every match in the tournament feel like you're actually fighting some type of enemy in an RPG. Meanwhile, in the FFI, the Australians are just Australians. The English team is just English people. It's just Italians. It's just normal kids, and that feels less exciting. But I still think they are still memorable.
Yeah, I appreciate that we brought that up, though, because Inazuma 3 and its nearby contemporaries of Season 2 and the Go games, but we haven't really mentioned Season 1 at all, and I think generally, again, it's pretty rare that people like Season 1 more than Season 3. But yeah, the lack of themes on a team could be a good reason too. Aura, do you feel the same way as well? Or differently?
Like in regards to the characters, or in regards to like the rest?
Season 3 characters, and then we can just generally segue into your points anyway, because we've kept you waiting long enough.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I think every team that was there did have nice characters. Like, almost every team, I did find I had a character to get attached to. But like, I do feel that lots of the characters, like, I'm going to speak on my personal opinion, I'm sorry. Lots of the characters, they wanted to push the viewers to get attracted to, like, be invested in the story of. I didn't feel as much that way. Also, they made it confusing a lot. Like, again, like, I'm sorry if this is gonna give it up on me, but like, with Garshield and then connecting lots of characters to Garshield, like, what's his name, Graneo, the Brazil captain?
Yeah, well, nobody remembers his dub name anyway. Poor old Macrobingo.
Yeah, Macrobingo, and like, I think he was a cool character, but then like, when he got connected to Garfield, I feel like it got lost on me,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. Like, I feel like lots of the characters had things going for them, but it would just get lost on me because I wasn't able to keep an interest.
Yeah, totally fair enough. I've kind of felt the same way about Brazil. I think it's an interesting one to compare with Orion as well, because I think Orion does overall have a better Brazil match and a better Brazil team with a captain. It just doesn't feel that way because the team was such a complete copy paste theming wise of the previous one. It's like, wow, we had Brazilian Samba and now we've got Brazilian Samba, except also being tortured by a different villain. So it was like I definitely let out a big sigh of disappointment when I first saw Brazil in Orion.
Same but different.
But in getting to watch it back, it's like, wow, these guys actually are better than the season 3 equivalent. Just too bad they couldn't have, I don't know, said it was Colombia or something. Just give me anything here to separate them. But yeah, so let's just move into your general thoughts then, Aura. What about season 3 lets you down, would you say?
One thing that makes it difficult to watch for me, I noticed, I don't know how this opinion will be taken, but some of the like characters from like the other countries' teams, like I really like, as I said, that Inazuma Eleven can explore the world, but sometimes they like verge on like caricatures, and like it makes it hard to watch for me. Like the cringe of it, if that makes sense.
You know, I think it's great to have an artist's perspective on that one because, yeah, like I say, when everybody told me their main problem with season 3 before getting into the video itself, you were mainly talking about the character design, which is like something I'd barely even explored. But yeah, by all means, own it. Are there any like particular examples you'd want to talk about?
Like, I don't know, like it can be related to like both like not even like just the character design but the personality, like in England's team. Sometimes it just felt very on the nose that like we're fancy like British people and
British
like
people. Not at all directed at me and Lexi.
it's okay to be British. I accept it.
That is the nicest
Yeah.
thing anyone has ever said about British people.
But no, it's true. I guess I've maybe heard the point raised once or twice. I know a lot of people just kind of don't mind whatsoever, but I've heard the occasional complaint about mainly Brazil and Little Gigantes South Africa. Well, not South Africa, but some undistinguished
Yeah, that's
part of
also
Africa.
one thing that really annoys me is that like they didn't put the effort to give the Little Gigantes a country, and that was just so weird because why is like one continent that's here not getting like actual country representation?
It's even more weird when you find out there is a South Africa team in Inazuma 11-3. They lose to Little Gigantes in the qualifiers. You can play them in a competition route. So basically that serves to say Little Gigantes, it could be anywhere in Africa, but it's not South Africa. We know that much. A friend of mine from Spain, she did a whole art project once to kind of headcanon them as being from Cabo Verde and like gave them a new kit and family backstory around it. And it's like, I kind of grew to like it once people started putting their own things into it, and also different translations of the games did it differently. Like Darts, for instance, you could tell us how they localized that team in French, right?
I'm not sure, honestly. It's been a while. I think they named it, like, the country is named Costile, I think, something like that. Maybe I'm just, or that's the English
It
one.
maybe
I
wasn't
can't remember.
French, but I know there are certain translations of Inazuma 11 that picked a country for Little Gigantes. Obviously, the English one didn't, and the Japanese one didn't either. But I know that occasionally some translations did actually just pick somewhere, but it was never the same one each time. But yeah, I've heard a bit of occasional flack for Brazil and for the African team at the very point. Do you think there's something design wise they maybe could have done a little bit better there, Aura?
I mean, I know that, like, of course, at the time that season 3 was made, Inazuma 11 wasn't an international franchise at all. Like, none of the games or anime or anything had been, like, shown outside of Japan. So I guess they weren't really focusing on how to, like, actually portray international characters for an international audience. But I wish they could have put more thought into, like, lots of what they did. It would make it, like, better and, less painful to look at. I'm so sorry if that's
Yeah. No, I mean, feel free. That's what we're here for. At the end of the day, we want to explore that opinion, because I guess if I was going to say one thing in particular, it's not something that stood out to me before other artists said it, but I know a few people are kind of uncomfortable with the big lips they went with for a lot of characters, and it's like, it's not as though Inazuma hadn't done this before. Like, Jack Wallside had it, and it wasn't really questioned because he was just part of your team. His nationality wasn't really important, but then if you're going to do that for specifically Brazilians or Africans, I know that stuck out. And I think the same person who made the Cabo Verde headcanon for Little Gigantes pointed out that some of the African skin tones were maybe a bit off, or maybe they were just more inconsistent with each other for no reason. But I'm no expert at the end of the day. Like, it's not a complaint I ever raised, but I think the responsibility more falls to people who were not, I think the England team, they probably got pretty accurate. They were they were kind of dislikable, but they got that pretty spot on. So not my business, but yeah, it's one I'd like to know the opinion on from more people, because there is also another team that we've kind of deliberately swept under the rug a bit, just because nobody's going to defend these guys, and at least they weren't part of the anime. But I think there is a certain team in Season 3's depths which stands out as probably the worst thing Inazuma has ever done. A Brocken Brigade for Germany.
Yeah.
Oh, Akihiro Hino, how did this get past approvals? What were you thinking? They sure.
Not familiar with them. What's wrong with Broken Brigade? I've never actually seen them.
So
They're like
go ahead.
Basically they're based on, like, World War II tanks, if I remember exactly correctly. Because they're Germany, and Germany is all about World War II, according to whatever caricature Inazuma 11 decided to land on for that country.
I see. I had no idea. Wow.
Yeah, there's no real getting around that one. Like, obviously, you're in Group A in the plot of Season 3, and there is a Group B, the one that Brazil and Little Gigantes qualify from, while 3 other teams have to fall. You, of course, have Rose Griffin for France. You have... I'm forgetting another one, but you of course, had Brocken Brigade for Germany, and they were war-themed, and all the moves were war-themed, and like their shooting move was called Gunshot. The goalkeeper was wearing like a gas mask, and it's just incredibly uncomfortable for a game that was released in 2010 in Japan. And thank God they were not in the anime, because a lot of people might have just not watched this show anymore if that kind of attention was brought to Brocken Brigade. But we'll thank our lucky stars that they are at least a bit under the radar. But yeah, it's bad.
I actually have one other thing, which I think summarizes some of my feelings towards like that season's placement in the whole series. I feel it's with that season slash game that there started to be a shift between like in terms of what their priorities are between the game and the anime. I feel that before that they were really thinking game first and then the anime adaptation alongside it. But I feel that Inazuma Eleven 3 is really when they started thinking, okay, no, we have to do an anime and we'll make a game alongside the anime. I think that's really when we started to see that shift happening. And it kind of had an impact on the rest of the series afterwards. Because if you think back to season 1 and the first game, they tell the same, like similar story overall, but there's still quite a lot of differences. And in how it approaches certain characters or certain events in the story. The main difference for me back then was the fact that uh, Eric was a character in the anime, but it was an optional character in the game, and I had absolutely no idea that you could recruit Eric. I actually completely missed him, and for the longest time, I thought Eric was dead for real. It wasn't until I watched the anime that I found out he was still alive. Uh, and the same, it was kind of the same for season 2, where there were also some differences in the story between the anime and the game. Um, but once we reach season 3, it really feels like they started focusing on the anime first. And you brought Thor Stoutberg earlier, uh, like how he was somewhat prominent in the anime of season 2, but in the game, I think he was just like a secret post-game character or something. Like you could completely miss him, but now he's the main character in season 3 in the third game, and you're like, who's that guy? Where does he come from? Uh, there were a lot of elements that came from the anime that just like retconned or just imported into the game in Inazuma 11 3, and you can really feel it when you play like the matches where at the start of every halftime you will get like 5 to 10 minutes of just cutscenes, just replaying everything that happened in the anime in game form. So just like text boxes explaining what's going on, what the conflict is, what their special move or special tactics is. By the way, I hate tactics. I should have brought it up, but that's one
True.
thing I hate in that season. Um, it's like it feels like you're just watching the game of the anime, where up until that point, it wasn't really the game of the anime or the anime of the game. It felt like both the anime and the game were like separate experiences built from the same blueprint. Here, it really felt like, okay, no, the anime is crazy popular, and it was crazy popular back then. So we're just going to focus on the anime, going to tell a very entertaining sports anime, and we'll make a game on the side that's going to sell 1 million. And all the games after that, it really feels like it was the same. The Go games really felt like they came alongside the anime. Ares, the game never came out, but when you think back to how the game was promoted, the trailers, the press articles, even the back of the box, it was oh, look at the graphics, they look exactly like the anime. This is exactly like the anime. This really was a selling point for the game, and I feel like as someone who discovered the series through the games, I feel we kind of lost something with that, and that's probably one of the reasons I kind of resent season 3 in retrospect. I felt it was a shift in how they approached making that series.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, because it is true that the third game, I remember my first playthrough, I'm like, surely this time when I do the kickoff, I'm actually going to be able to play, and it was never true. But at least it doesn't take up much of your time. Yeah, they are clearly recapping the events that they just had to get in there, and they just, like Fire Dragon, you've got a good 10 minutes of exposition and then a match, and then you've got 10 minutes of exposition and then the second half. And then Go 1 suffers a lot from its mission objectives and making you do everything step by step. Again, like how anyone can prefer Go 1 to Go 1 as a game to Inazuma 11 3 as a game is still going to be beyond me. But I do think for Chrono Stones, they honestly kind of switched back. I don't know if that's just me, but I feel like the anime really struggled to adapt the concept of armorifying, Keshin armed, to a show format that would be interesting. It was very much made for the games first to balance out their mistakes of how overpowered fighting spirits were in Go 1. It's like, it's fun to use a armorified spirit in the game of Chrono Stones because you can use all your moves and do whatever you want, whereas in the anime it's like they transform and then they kick the ball and it looks kind of limp. And they kind of worked out the mission objective. I think Chrono Stones was... It told a lot more jokes in the game and took itself less seriously, whereas the anime tried to do it a lot more story first, which just doesn't really work for something that bonkers. But yeah, I kind of feel like for Chrono Stones and subsequently Galaxy, they were able to change the tide on that somewhat. But I totally get what you mean for Season 3 and for Go 1 following after. I can definitely see a focus on the anime coming out first. But I don't know if you obviously agree for Chrono Stones
No,
and Galaxy. But
it's true. Like in retrospect, it's true that a lot of Chrono Stone's elements were like very gamey, like especially the armor fight. That's true. But yeah, like in my mind, I really think back to playing like Go and 3 pretty much back to back, and having to sit through all those cutscenes in 3, and then Go just basically telling you, okay, we're pausing the timer. You need to take Arian to that part of the field so the other character can beat him up, just like it happened in the anime, and you just spending all the early game matches just watching Arian get beat up, then take the ball again and watching get beat up again, and it's just that for 10 minutes. So yeah, but it's true that they kind of fixed it in later games, and hopefully, well, the next game, Victory Road, doesn't have an anime, so it's going to be completely different. Hopefully, like the approach they make the story and the game itself. But yeah, it was really more like for Inazuma 11 3 in particular. That's where we really started seeing a change in priority, and you could feel it when playing the game.
yeah, it's a good point because when I'm trying to rank my Inazuma games, like I have to aggregate it somewhat and bring the anime and the games together into the discussion. And I think for me, season 3 was the best season of the anime they ever did, and I don't think it was that close. I think the only one for me that can really rival it is Chrono Stones, but I also think Chrono Stones' story was told better as a game than it was as an anime, whereas season 3 was quite clearly told better as an anime. So I think for me it kind of stands alone as the best season, whereas if you're going more off the games, I think the likes of Chrono Stones and possibly Galaxy as well can actually overtake Inazuma 3, and also season Inazuma 2 when the scouting was at its simplest and you could just have fun with all the random recruits. Like Lexi says, I think Inazuma 11, 2 and 3 are the most replayable in the series, whereas Chrono Stones leaves the best first impression for me. But I'll go back into Lexi anyway, because yeah, did you have any other last points about season 3? And also, I'm kind of interested to know if you actually do still prefer Go 1 to season 3. Or the
Yeah,
third one.
I will go out of my way to say that I do think I enjoyed Go Shadow more than I enjoyed Lightning Bolt in my initial playthroughs of them. I think what it comes down to for me is just like when it comes to the Inazuma 11 games, I can tell you that the least fun I had in an initial playthrough of any of the Inazuma 11 games was Inazuma 11 3. And I'm not going to go out of my way and say that, it was bad, because it wasn't. It's Inazuma 11 at the end of the day. Inazuma 11 as a game is still really good. It is still better than most games out there, I think. But Inazuma 11 1 was where I got introduced to it, and it was great. Inazuma 11 2 took that, leveled it up a whole lot, and it was wonderful. Inazuma 11 Go, brought spirits, brought 3D. It was kind of crazy being there initially, and then Chrono Stones did the same that 2 did, and then a hell of a lot more, and it was wild. Inazuma 11 3 just was another Inazuma 11 at the time. Like, there wasn't much to me that really, accentuated, oh, this is the next step forward. This was just the next chapter in the story that, honestly, it needed more story. If you're telling the story it did, as someone who only played the games, Inazuma 11 3 made sense, to, specifically concerning, Mark's grandfather. But, at least for me, the most invested I was in the narrative in the original trilogy was the existence of the Dark Emperors. So having that as a stopping point there, I would have been fine with, and then they moved on to a new generation of Inazuma. I would have been okay with that. I definitely think that's not going to be the popular opinion. There's no way that's the popular opinion. Sean Frost exists. It's not the popular opinion. But yeah, I think if I were to replay it nowadays, would my opinions change? Probably. And I do feel like in this conversation alone, I have picked up things I didn't like. Obviously, I did not know about, Austin being themed around, he's an 11-year-old kid. What would an 11-year-old kid like? But at the same time, I have replayed Inazuma 11 1. I've replayed Inazuma 11 2. I've replayed Inazuma 11 Go Shadow. I've replayed Inazuma 11 Chrono Stones. I had I've had minimal desire to replay Inazuma 11-3 in my life, and it's there now. But the fact it was just kind of not there for a long time, I think's pretty telling.
For sure. Right, well, this is great. So we'll get wrapping it up. I'll just ask Aura one more time before we leave. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, something that actually the other said that made me think is the reliance of the season 3 anime to go along with the Inazuma 11 game makes it like it pulls it down a lot, definitely. Like when playing the game, I found like the anime season, I've only watched it once. I've rewatched every Inazuma 11 season at least like 4 times, I can confidently say. But like the anime, I rewatched once. The game, I played through halfway and ended up dropping because I actually like felt it was just doing what the anime was doing, and like maybe I should pick it up and like continue. But like it was difficult to yeah. It was difficult to say, oh, this is doing things that the anime didn't do. Oh, I really want to see what it's going to do next. Anywhere where it wasn't doing what the anime did, it felt like it was just because it was missing things.
You know, it's a good perspective because Lexi and I are the same, and possibly Darts as well, in that we played the games first. So I always felt it was great to play the third game or play Chrono Stones and get the story out of the game first and then expand on it with the anime. Whereas, yeah, if you do it in return, I can see the likes of Inazuma 1 and 2 having more freedom to do game-exclusive stuff compared to the show, but also Inazuma 3 game will feel like a light version, a slight retelling of the anime without... The only real thing it does get to do that the anime doesn't would be the backstory on Paolo and Hector and Canon, which is exclusive to a game each. So, yeah, that kind of ties it all together, but... That's great. Do we, all three of us, have anything else to add, or shall we say ta-ra?
No, I think we've covered everything. Basically, we hate Inazuma 11-3 and Inazuma 11 in general. We'll just hate it.
I just actually despise Inazuma 11. Like, I've tricked you all along. This has been a 10-year con, and it's finally paying off. Inazuma 11 is not that good. That hurts me a little bit.
Yeah, you couldn't even finish it.
I can't. I want to commit to the bit, but like, no, Inazuma 11, one of my favorite franchises. Every one of my favorite franchises has like a spot somewhere where I'm like, I'm not as into it as other parts, but that's fine because at the end of the day, it's the thing I love, and you know, I still love it.
God, I can't wait for you to play Go Galaxy or watch Orion. Like the fact that you've still got more Inazuma left to go. It's always going to be a beacon of hope.
I am I am insanely excited for whenever I get around to it. It's just a matter of like getting to that point because I want this Inazuma 11 video done before Go Galaxy like is even thought about. So
well, that's a perfect place to bring in our final plugs before we all go. Because yes, thank you very much to our three guests. We have Soup Lexi, who makes some wildly energetic content on YouTube. You may have seen some of it on this very channel before, but I really recommend just get on the Suplexy YouTube channel, pick a game that looks appealing, even if it's a Peppa Pig game, and eventually, when you're subscribed, there will be an edited down montage of a stream he did of all the way through Inazuma 11-1, and I think you're going to be streaming Inazuma 11-2 relatively soon, right?
Relatively soon after that video goes out. Like, I don't want to put like more Inazuma in the back burner, but whenever that video goes out, give it like a couple months, and then Inazuma 11-2 will be streaming it. But I've definitely found some wild players in my first time. I'm going for the weird and the wild. Did you know there was a player called One Piece? Because when I found him, I lost it.
Oh, like Wu-A-N, One Piece. Is that...
No. There is just a guy who's like, the last name on the bottom screen is just One Piece. It's one word. And like, I lost it.
Ah, I see. Inazuma 11 is very funny. Well,
yeah.
Darts, where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter/X on at Darts Enthusiast in one word. And also, if you can understand French, be sure to check out Inazuma Frontier. That's inazumafrontier.com in one word, or Inazuma 11 FR on Twitter if you want to stay up to date on Inazuma 11 news. But once again, if you can speak French, if you only speak English, I'm sure there are a lot of other content creators that do a great job of recapping the news. So be sure to support them first and foremost.
Merci. And Aura, your entire palette of artistic platforms.
Yes. I post art on Twitter at Kisoji Heta. My art posts aren't frequent. It's a lot of spam, but I do try to post multiple drawings a week. Instagram is kind of where my log of drawings will go once I've done posting it up on Twitter. So if you don't want to see all the chat, you can just jump there. It's at Sakurazaki Joji. I keep stealing Victorial character names for usernames.
This won't have been apparent to Lexi, but every handle Aura has on social media is always different, and it's always the name of a new character from Inazuma 11 Victory Road, for which the URL she's just grabbed the moment it's become available. So Kisoji Hater is literally just a character in the new game, as is Sakurazaki Joji. It's
That's fantastic.
Even as she joins this Discord call, I'm not going to say which character, obviously, but it's another one. So, by process of elimination, I guess you can try. But yeah, thank you all for exploring the concept of why Season 3 and the third game might not be the best, despite the popular opinion. I do think I've learned generally a lot about it, particularly about how, the focus from anime first, game second is something I think I've always thought but never really put into words. That ties up a lot. So, of course, everyone watching on YouTube as well, let me know what you like and dislike about Season 3. Or you could just roast Darts for thinking Orion is better. I don't know. Say whatever you want to say. But thanks to everyone for listening along. And if there's any other discussion topics like this you want me to go over, then feel free to suggest them and maybe we can make that happen. So I've been Taylor the Toaster with all my lovely friends, and we'll see you in another one.
Bye.
Bye.